Hello to Stettin. Good evening. Dobry wieczór. Can you hear me? So just give me a tweet or it's chat in the social stream. So can you hear me and see me? Yes. No news are bad news. I think it should work. Okay, looks nice. So, good evening. Why I'm here or not there? Stettin is a little bit hard to reach. Comparing to Krakow, Danzig, or Warsaw, I would have to travel to Berlin and then switch to Stettin. I will lose probably 2 days of my work, and it's a little bit hard because I have lots of deadline to meet. And I think it was 3 to 4 years ago, I was asked by Pavel Sławicki whether I would like to talk in Stettin. And I remember I had no time, I was in Hamburg, and they say, okay, it's really hard to come to Stettin. I say, no problem, I can pick you with car. And I was about to say yes, but the problem was it was weekend. The next Monday I had still to work, so it would be a crazy ride. So I remember that, and Pavel asked me again, would you like to come? And now I say, okay, what about virtual way of communication? I mean, we are all virtual, right? So why not to try this? And yeah, see how it works. So what I think is a keynote. So a keynote is a little bit higher level. And in my last or recent air hacks at Munich Airport, we had lots of discussion about architecture structuring JavaEE applications, and my impression was it was still not clear at the end. So what I would like to do today is first to start with some slides to explain you how I structure JavaEE applications and why it worked well so far. This is actually the idea of the workshop, and we have still some time. Depends on Pavel. I could show you some code, hack some code for you. But yeah, keynote is keynote, so we will be a little bit more higher level. Everyone agreed? Yes? No questions? No questions. We will use Twitter for communication because of Skype. There is some delay. So then let's start with the actual presentation. So you see there is the Twitter with DevCrowd, and how to tackle JavaEE. And I will just go full screen. So about me, I like Java. I've working with Java since 1995, and I am a freelancer. I never worked for a company. Actually, I always was singleton. I write a blog from time to time. I'm on Twitter. I am 3 years a year I organize, or my wife organizes, and I'm just deliver the workshop. JavaEE workshop is 1 week. The people come from all over the world. There were some from Poland, of course. And each first Monday of the month, there is question and answers, virtual, like this. So you can ask me whatever you like about Java. I try to answer this. I do it to save a little bit of my time because I get lots of questions from my blog. So these are the workshops, and I wrote 2 books, but now start with the topic. So the question is, who actually cares about JavaEE? So Java Enterprise Edition, very nice, but at the end of the day, you will have to do something for your customers. And whether it is JavaEE or not, now no one actually pays attention to it, except probably operations. So what you have to think about is, we should be more productive. Otherwise, we will be killed by Ruby, PHP even, or Python or whatever, or Go or whatever. Or Go probably not, but Node.js, for instance. So what the point is, with JavaEE, you can be extremely productive if you concentrate on the business logic. And this is actually the topic of the workshop here. And when the architecture is perfect. I would say the architecture is then perfect, or JavaEE is then perfect, when you have about 80% of domain code or 80% of your code covers domain logic, business logic, and 20 or even less. 20 is already way too much, but 20 or more percent is the framework code. And I would say 80 and 20% rule is a known rule, but I would even go and say 90-10 or 95-5%. So the best possible JavaEE architecture would be lots of POJOs with some annotations and simple, straightforward code. This is actually the best case. No frameworks, no interaction, no strange patterns, no exaggeration, just straight business logic. This would be the best possible case, and this is what I try to achieve in my projects at least. And it works from time to time. It really depends on the architects and the developers. So what wonders me a little bit is everyone didn't like the J2E 1.4 and 1.3 complexity. So the problem was there was lots of problems with XML and overhead with interfaces and JNDI lookups and exceptions and dependency on the API. And the problem is probably or went away in 2006 with the introduction of JavaEE 5 and JavaEE 6. But what I still see in projects, most of the developers, some developers are still applying the same old, ancient and outdated patterns to the new technology, which doesn't make any sense anymore. And I think we should stop with that. This would be actually nice to just to stop with it. And so the next point is no dependencies. So no dependencies means start with a plain POM XML, no external dependencies, or you shouldn't start with some dependencies. What I mean by that is I wouldn't use Jakarta Commons or Google Guava or whatever without urgent needs. So it's not just using dependencies just for fun. Why not? Because each external dependency increases the build time, increases the size of the WAR, web archive, and if it increases the size of the web archive, it will take longer to deploy it and bring in production. Also, each external dependency is a risk. Risk means if there is some bug, you will have to fix the bug, which is usually not a problem at the beginning, but imagine your application will stick in production for 5 years. After 5 years, who knows whether this dependency is actually still around. So I saw really large projects which were dependent on a small GitHub project maintained by one single guy, for instance. So the question is, what happens if the guy just pushes the remove button at GitHub and the project just disappears? So this is what I'm thinking about, and also what I already implied is in JavaEE 6 just start with a WAR web archive. Ears are nice, but are actually no more needed. So you can just do whatever you like with WAR. Ears is a special case if you need to know specific class path settings, or you would like to deploy the JCA connector with ear. Then go with an ear. Otherwise, go with WAR. In fact, I think, I don't know, about 8 years ago, I used the last time in the ear. I really, so whatever I do is a WAR. So let's see whether there are some questions. Are there some questions? Oh, no question, just welcome. It's not bad, but question would be even better. So any questions? Everyone agreed with my opinion so far? This cannot be, because this opinion is not that common. So I get lots of, not problems, but discussion in my projects about this. So, okay, no news are good news. If you are with me, it's even better. The next point is, the last time I got lots of questions is how to start with JavaEE. Is complicated, what I have to know, and which frameworks to use, and so forth. So I would say Java and JavaEE knowledge does not really matter. So I think you can build very effectively JavaEE applications with knowing just 5 annotations. Basically, Add inject is the most important one. Add stateless for transactions. Add entity for persistence, and add ID probably for the key. And if you would like to start with GSF, probably add model. If not, add path for JAX or S. And of course, if you know already path, you have to know that for each HTTP action or method, there is also an annotation. Knowing this, you could build something similar like chat or Twitter already, and everything else can come later. So just start with hacking something. So on that note, what I also see in projects that because some of the consultants are not don't have really deep knowledge about the domain. This also happens to me because I'm also external consultant, and in some project I really don't know what is actually the key point of the domain logic. Because they do not know about very much about the domain, they program around the domain. So they introduce abstractions and indirections just to not to go into the matter actually. So what you should do instead is just to start with plain concept, plain POJOs, and try to express as direct as only possible the business logic or domain logic, and then apply some annotations on it. This would be the best possible case. Yeah, the next is no vision, no glory. So what is vision? Vision, if you remember, it was, if you remember, it came actually from a waterfall process called rational unified process. But the vision was really nice thing. So what it is actually is one page which describes why the project is actually built, what are the key features of the project, and why the project or the product is better than the competition. So it just the key advantages of this what we are building. And I have to admit, in most of my projects, we get millions of use cases, but no one actually knows why we're building the application. So it seems like we're building, if we just create 100,000 buttons and 200 checkboxes, we are ready to go. But it's not the point to fulfill 600 use cases. The idea would be to create rocking application. This is actually the point here, and this is often what I miss in projects, and what it should do is ask for. So the domain experts. So what are actually the key points? Why we are building the system? The next point is this is actually funny. This is the Parkinson's Law of triviality. So the Parkinson's Law of triviality says basically that the easier decision is, the expensive it becomes. And this was actually not funny. It's actually said in the US they built an atomic reactor, so nuclear reactor, and all the hard decisions were made very fast because they were hard. They weren't just few people involved. But the decision about the color of the carpet in the front of the building, they spent millions just to decide this because everyone could contribute. And actually, it is exactly this in my projects. So, like, questions like why you name this thing facade and not service, and we spent days in meetings just discussing about the names, the name discussion. But semantics, no one cares about. So in one project, I submitted a project, and there was no one asked me about consistency, transactions, or some of the principles. Rather than what was most interesting is what is the group ID of the whole thing in Maven? Can we just deploy this, and which name to choose, for instance? And so I see it over and over again. So from my perspective, what we should do, all trivial decisions should be backed by a somehow standard, and you can point to the standard. If you point to the standard, you can omit boring meetings. So just try to avoid meetings by using standards. So we come to this a little bit later. So questions? What's wrong with you? No questions. I only see me, but no questions. So this is not good. And here, also no questions. No questions. Okay, then Parkinson's Law of triviality. Mainstream means if there's a pattern, just use it before you invent your own. And why? Just to minimize discussion, period. So if you take something obvious, which is standard, no one will ask you why, because it's standard. But if you invent something by your own, there's always trouble with it. And if you go to other projects, the people who remain in the projects will have no idea what you actually meant by this. So, and this is why I found a very old book, Object-Oriented Software Engineering by Ivar Jacobson. And the Ivar Jacobson is someone who also was involved in UML, Unified Modeling Language. And in this book, there is an interesting pattern called entity control boundary. And this pattern is like universal pattern for MVC. So it is a glorified MVC, model view controller, with the distinction that model view controller is a little bit overused, and in model view controller is applicable mainly for UI, and entity control boundary could be applicable for whatever you like. So I'm using, for instance, for structuring the business part, the backend of the application. So let's start with the artifact. So boundary looks like this, and it always looked like this. So if you, even the oldest UML drawing tools had these icons, and I draw that with OmniGraffle. There is you can use Visio, and there's whatever UML framework you are using, there are such icons already prepared for you. If not, you can just use plain stereotype. And if you don't have an UML tool available, what I don't use it very often, UML, you can just use it to draw it on the table. It's very easy to draw. So, and the boundary, what the boundary means is, the boundary is the boundary or the border between UI and the business logic. So I concentrate in this talk just about the business logic. How the UI and the integration logic looks like is a different topic, but let's concentrate just on the business. So boundary is something which isolates the business logic and exposes to the UI the most easiest and most usable API on the planet. This is the idea. This is actually the main responsibility of the boundary. And I call the boundary, and I use the same icon. Why? Because it was defined by Ivar Jacobson 20 years ago, and why to invent another term? And there are lots of other architectural styles, but none of them comes with icons, which are already available in all drawing tools. So just be pragmatic. And by the way, in the two recent books, I refer to this. Before these books, I used my own names. So I didn't use boundary rather than service facade. And this was a huge mistake, because in all of my projects, I have to discuss why the name is service facade and not just facade or not just service or whatever, or endpoint or who knows what. So, and I think about 4 years ago, I switched to entity control boundary, and no one asked me again why I use the name, because I can point to this book, to the standards, say, look, something is defined there, just use the names. So the next is the control. And what the control is, you see, is optional. So this is actually means optional here. Optional means don't use it from the beginning. Control happens on demand by divide and conquer. So what it actually means is, you are starting with the boundary, which is, in my case, is always an EJB. Why? Because we need transactions and monitoring. These are the aspects I'm interested in. So always an EJB, threading, throttling, transactions, monitoring. This is why I need it. And controls are just helpers. So what it means, in one point of time, if you put everything to a boundary becomes too complex, too hard to test, and how to maintain. So what you should do is to look on coherent pieces and extract them somewhere else. And where is it? A control. And control is a CDI bean. So it's just dependent bean which is injected to an EJB. This is called divide and conquer. It's probably one of the oldest software development principles on the planet. And so you start with boundary, let the boundary grow. It becomes too big, too fat, too complex. Just extract parts to control, inject the controls to boundary, period. So how to create controls? They are created as product of refactoring. So please ask questions, because, very nice. No depth policy, aka JavaEE purism, may indeed solve many problems. Oh, perfect. So Adam. I'm also Adam. So nice. Making this, okay. How standards relates to agility? I think I don't get the question really. So how standard relates to agility? I would say agility means concentrate, on the core stuff, and don't play around with the with stuff which is irrelevant. And in my eyes, naming doesn't matter. Semantics are interesting, but naming doesn't matter. And agility, I have to say, I hate the word agility, or not. I don't like the word agility. Why? Because in my eyes, you cannot build software in other way other than agile. It is impossible to build software in waterfall manner. So sometimes you are forced to if you are building rockets or satellites or whatever. But in our, I would say, enterprise, boring enterprise applications business, you can just do it waterfall. It never worked. So agile is standard. So stop, call it agile, and let's focus just on software development. So what standards also mean with JavaEE, for instance, I just concentrate on the business logic from day one. I don't have, to choose a la carte from different APIs on best of breed application servers or whatever. I just download Tommy, Whitefly, Glassfish, WebSphere Liberty profile and start hacking or coding. And this is what I like the most on JavaEE or on standards. I don't have to think about the trivial stuff. And mostly it is good enough. So Adam, thank you very much for the questions. I hope I answered the question. And the next question is from Pavel. Of course, I can give you an example. The first time, for years, I tried to be more structured with slides. So, and you would like to see code. So here is it. Here's one of my open source projects. There are all the business components, and there is configuration with a boundary, and the boundary is an startup singleton, which is a RESTful web service at the same time. This is an X-ray project. You can clone it from GitHub. There is another example: monitoring boundary. It is a singleton startup. This is all singletons, unusual, but this one is a singleton because a JMX bean at the same time. And let's see, statistics boundary, daily statistics resource. And the daily hits calculator is a control. It is a singleton this is a singleton because I have to cache stuff. But usually it is not a singleton, it will be a CDI managed bean. So this is a very specific project for me. But you see, everything is organized the same way. And yeah. So we have here hits resource with hits management. And the hits management is then the control. Perfect. So basically, the boundary would be an EJB with at stateless. In standard enterprise project, this is not a standard enterprise project. It uses Hazelcast and lambdas and all the crazy stuff. So at stateless, it would be a stateless bean, and with injected controls, which are just Java classes without any annotations. Perfect. So boundary is more or less than application layer. Yeah, it is. With the except what I see is not application layer, it is a component layer. So as you can see, my whole application layer is organized in business components, and within each business component, I have a single boundary. So it is not an application layer, it is a component layer. Because application layer would be too large. In applications layer, there would be, one boundary would be too fat. And so I have boundaries for each business component. The question is, what is business component? It's like a large object. So a large object, it means, my pet example, Amazon, it would be order for sure, would be a business component, or a customer, or book is too specific, product probably. Very good. Thank you for the question. It's amazing. Font size. What's wrong with you? Of course. So font size, 24 for the old people. So. Any questions? Adam, now it should be good. Pavel, Are you satisfied with my explanation, the difference between application layer and boundary? And of course, you know, the boundary only appears within a component and not as a total. Okay. Let's see. Font okay now. Perfect. This is extremely, I got, you know, tweets from all over the place. So here is nothing in the social chat. Okay. Control. The next one is obvious entity. What entity is in my project? Just JPA entity, period. So this is, or sometimes if you don't, for instance, in the X-ray project, there is no JPA, just a memory grid, just POJOs. Or a JSON object, whatever. JSON object is a little bit too generic, but something which has behavior and can be persistent. This is entity. The old, you know, old school object, what we learned in the school. This is the entity. So what it already implies, if the entity is a JPA entity, it can absolutely have business logic. So it's not like the business logic is forbidden in the entities. It is required because we would like to build business applications. Okay. And now, what you saw already in X-ray, the business component is a package with a business name, and boundary is a subpackage, control is a subpackage, and entity is a subpackage. And here we have EJB with at stateless. Here we have usually CDI managed beans, except we would like to have asynchronous behavior, and then I would use EJB still or schedule or something like this. And entities are usually JPA entities, can be also just domain objects which are not persistent. So transient entities are absolutely fine. So I think the basic architecture is covered. Now let's start. So I hope font size big. Pavel is satisfied. The other Pavel as well. So then let's start with some principles. Don't repeat yourself, and duplication is evil. So the terms are stolen from Ruby on Rails. Not stolen. They were famous in Ruby on Rails, and what I mean is define the concept only once and not multiple times. This is the basic idea of this. So what it automatically means is if you have the JPA entity, just stick with the entity and don't even try, you know, to create a DTO upfront in another client TO or whatever and duplicate the single truth to multiple layers. These are already duplicated because the first duplication happens in a database, right? We have the concept table in the database and we duplicate it once to a JPA entity, and then I think there is no more required to create DTOs upfront. So my funny saying is, if Dozer or Java Bean utils works well in your project, your architecture is suspicious. So what it means, Dozer is a project which really nice project which copies very efficiently data between objects back and forth, given the objects are almost identical. So if the objects are identical, Dozer works well, but JPA means JPA is the same, looks like exactly the same like the DTO. What it means, you have the application in your project, and it is at least suspicious. So what you should do instead, try to start with JPA, and if the client in one point of time needs something really different to the JPA, then introduce the DTO, but then you wouldn't use probably Dozer because they are structurally that different that it doesn't matter whether you, or it doesn't matter, it doesn't pay off to just use a reflection tool to copy the data back and forth. And this is the most controversial topic, I would say. So I would expect at least some feedback. No, there is no feedback. So it means you don't writing DTOs, which are a good thing. So they are dead anyway, in most cases, except the structure of the backend is significantly different to the structure of the client, and then you have to use DTOs and map the DTOs to the entity beans. Perfect. You aren't gonna need it. So this is a little bit harder in business enterprise projects, but what you should attempt to is to kill as many features as only possible, because most of the features are not used anyway. So I was in projects. It was the funniest example. It was a few years ago. they introduced a form, and the form was so massive. There were so many text fields that actually showed that it's impossible to fill out the form before the timeout of the session. So it was like everyone knew that it's impossible to fill out the form for a normal user, and it was still implemented. So I tried to escalate this, and at the end of the day we split the form. But just to kill the features, irrelevant features, and concentrate on the matter. I know this is harder in enterprise projects because we get the use cases and everything we have to implement one-to-one, but at least try to convince the product managers that, it's not like the more features we implement, the better the application gets. So this was the last slide from the theory. And now I would like to hack something for you to show you how it looks a little bit, how it feels in source code, so do you get a reference architecture. So one question to Pavel, and should answer per Twitter. What is actually the mascot? So what you saw, the mascot here. This one, the red one. Something to do with the conference or Stettin? No answer. Then go without mascot. I would like to start with a web application and call that DevCrowd. Crowd. Okay. Doesn't matter. Use Whitefly. You saw Glassfish all the time from me. Now I will show it. Whitefly also works. So what I did, I created the project wrongly with something which I didn't like to do. So this is, let's leave it. This is a standard Maven archetype. So if you look at this, it is a standard Maven archetype for JavaEE. So there's the JavaEE dependency, and there's a Maven compiler plugin with settings, Maven war plugin just to say fail on missing web XML false. There's Maven dependency plugin, which behind the scenes copies the reference back and forth. We get 80% of the code, and most of the code is not needed. And this is why I created my own archetype, which you can also use as well. So this is the simplest possible archetype, because what I usually did, I created the JavaEE project from scratch with this, and then deleted all the craft. So I would just go with this and say com_airhacks is the group ID. So, and I will call this DevCrowd. And now it will create also a Maven project, but this project will look a little bit simpler. As you can see, this is all you need. You can specify here the Java version. You can specify whether you would like to see whether you have a web XML or not, and a single dependency to JavaEE 7. And if you put 6, then you would have a JavaEE 6 project. So this is all I need to start. Questions? No questions. Very good. So what usually happens? There's one single thing which I forget. What I always do is I create here a final name with the name of the project. Why? Because then the name of the war is DevCrowd, and it will be reused by the application server. So you will see the URI DevCrowd. So you can use the URI. The URI won't change. If you skip this, the name of the war will be DevCrowd 10 snapshot or something. So, and then what I would also like to do is start with RESTful Web Service, because this is the most reasonable thing to do. Everyone talks JSON and HTTP, and almost no one more talks SOAP except Java and .NET. But all the newer stuff, SOAP is unusable for this. So not com. PL DevCrowd. Let's say virtual is name of the application. And then I would like to create a JAX-RS configuration, which extends application. and application path is resources. It's a good starting point. So now JAX REST services are set up. Let's see questions. Stettin chicken. Very good. Thank you, Stettin chicken. So, and this is virtual business. So I forgot to mention, all my business logic resides in business layer. So this would be the business layer. And by the way, most of the frequently asked questions, if I have, shared classes, where to put the classes, I put them to business directly because they are shared. So, and then I create a class called, of course, chickens. So I got the hint, chickens. And dot boundary. And chickens resource is going to be the first ingredient of the boundary package, chickens resource. So thanks for the hint. Path is chickens, always chickens, plural, public, string, and now I have the next question. What's the name of the chicken? Chickens. So, return Duke Chick. It's a nice name. Oh, thank you. Adam likes my artifact. So chickens, I assume Duke Chick. So this would be the boundary. So what it means, I have also the RESTful web service in the boundary, and the chickens resource is something like a I would call it protocol adapter. So then I would like to introduce the chicken resource service, and the chicken service is the actual protocol neutral gate to the business logic. So this one has to know nothing about SOAP, JSF, REST, nothing, just puristic business logic. And this would deliver the actual name of the chicken, string get all chickens, and give me the name. Has the chicken a name in Stettin? No name. So no name. This would be the puristic business logic, right? And the chicken service, the chicken resource would like to have the chicken service. And I would just here reuse the chicken service. And usually it's not that simple like it is. I would usually use response, not a string, and then we would have here some more HTTP-based logic. For now, both are the boundary. This is the true boundary, and this is REST protocol adapter. So I would also have chicken SOAP service. If someone would force me to use SOAP, I would put SOAP stuff here, or RMI, or whatever. So then control. And before you create control, you have to do something in Java 7. You have to create a beans XML. And the big XML, in beans XML, you have to say everything has to be injected. So now you can inject whatever you like. You can inject stateless bean, CDI managed bean, whatever, with annotated. Only annotated stuff would be injected, and now everything is injectable. So, and let's say we have a chicken store. This could be a control. I just only do it for to save time, because usually you could inject the entity manager directly to the service. This would be not a big deal at all. So I actually always do this. If you look at the X-ray service, all boundaries have direct reference to the entity manager or Hazelcast or Infinispan or whatever. Who cares? There's no need to encapsulate this. So in the chicken store, and of course what we need, the chicken itself. The nameless chicken, chickens.entity, and this would be the chicken. The chicken, which is going to be an entity, and the chicken doesn't even have a name, which is very sad for the chicken. But then I give him or her an ID, and probably has an H at least, if not a name. Long H. Dagger. Ah, okay. Now it changes everything. So it has a name. Name. And constructor name H. So, and we also need the default constructor, and we are almost done, except that we need the persistence unit with drop and create, and I would call this prod. Why this save? And I will just look whether I'm using JBus run. Oh, whitefly. So again, where's the chicken? Chicken, it forgot whitefly. So create persistence unit, and data source is empty because it can be a default. Persistence unit name prod. And let's look what happened behind the scenes. I would just like to verify this. Looks great. Prod, JTA is the default, and we would like to drop and create the tables on the fly. There is no reference to Hibernate, no reference to data source, because in Java 7, all the application servers need to have a default data source, and there is no need to specify Hibernate or Eclipse link, because should use whatever installed on the server. Question so far? Dagger or Duga. I think it would be Dagger or Dagger. Chicken store. So obviously the chicken store needs chicken. So entity manager, now we can use this, add persistence context, and a method called save the chicken. Chicken. Pava, do you have any deadline, or can I just implement the application? Because now we are 45 minutes, so just tweet me whether I should stop now or just keep it going. And the chicken resource, of course, chicken service, excuse me, gets the chicken control. But again, this architecture is already over-engineered, because there is the control was just introduced to show you this default structure. I would usually never use control for create, root, update, delete. I would just inject the entity manager directly to the service. Void save with the chicken and chicken store to save. Chicken store CS and inject. So use inject whenever possible. Chicken imported, and then this CS dot save. And so as you can see, now it already degrades to an empty delegate, which would be forbidden in my project. This I would consider as a defect. There is no added value, just to delegate. Why to use this? But yeah, I would like to show you the whole structure. This is why. And of course, I can have here name query. Named query. And with name all, I would usually create a constant for this, but this is fine for select, query, select, C from chicken C. So now I have the query, and the chicken store would return a list of chickens, all. And this would look like return this em create name query with the name is all, the type is chicken.class, and get result list. So this would look like this. So this would be ready to use, and the chickens resource, we have here chickens, and in public void save let's go with something like, just use chicken. No, something new. JSON Object. And I'll call this chicken. A second. No, thank you. It's not. We have time. Perfect. So post. And then I would have to use at least a name. So get string name, and is going to be the name of the chicken. Name and chicken get int. This would be the age of the chicken. Age. And then we can say cs.save new chicken with name and age. So this would be the full implementation of the project. So we have the chicken store, save all. We have the chicken, which has the name, age, and this would be, and this, I think we return the chicken here, right? String chickens. No, this would be a list of chickens. This is list of chickens. As you already see, the control is absolutely stupid here. It causes lots of duplication. So this CS all. So now it looks better, except what I also need here, some JAX-B annotations. XML root element, XML accessor type field. We don't have getters and setters. And now let's see whether it actually works. So first, try to run the application. And now I will switch to Twitter. No tests so far. No tests. The reason for this is it's too simple. So I could introduce some tests right now, but I will also increase the amount of business logic. But I think the next time we can do some tests. So just testing. If you like, one session about testing. So if you like, we can do this whenever you like. But this time, DevCrowd, resources. Adam Dutzak is very critical listener. DevCrowd resources /chickens. And I get an error because you see here for response type, nothing defined for text HTML. So I would use the old curl. And I will have to say -h, set the header, basically, except application/JSON. And it will return an empty array. So then I will try something else, -h content type application, blank application/JSON. And use here -x post and -d and name, what was it, Dagger, and wait a second, so, and age is of course 42, and then the URI. And then would like to see chickens, Dagger, and I forgot the single quote here. So name, age. Let's do, I think we need this. As you can see, it works. So hopefully I got the Dagger back. So name Dagger. This was the whole run trip from command line, and it works well. So field injection over constructor injection. Good one. No, Adam. Critical. Adam is the best possible. Adam, you get a t-shirt the next time from me, so just keep ask questions. So next one's field injection over constructor injection. What I think the other means is the following. So why I'm not private. So, but right now the structure is ready. I would say we are ready to, so this is actually the structure I talk about with, this is extreme over engineering combined with cargo cult. Don't try it at home. So this is the chicken store is exaggerated. So this should be a part of the boundary. But now I can explain you why I never do this. Because what I can do right now is, no, not download. I have the JUnit test already. So I will need two dependencies. JUnit and the scope is test. And Mockito is a great Polish invention. So it's the best possible, the most simplest possible mocking framework you can imagine. So and now I would like to test what? There's nothing to test, but let's say I would like to use the chicken store here for testing. So now I can say the following: chicken service CS and init di before this CS this CS and what was it? Chicken store. Let's rename it to store, otherwise it becomes confusing. So store equals, we have no time, so I will just start with the mock. And the mock is going to be the chicken service. Chicken store, sorry. So and now I can test the method save, and the method save would be this cs.save with a chicken and then do something like verify this CS store save with chicken. No, mistake. Always do it wrong. It means actually, it means the same as ×1. So verify that the I have to import this as well, that the save method of the store was invoked once. So if I test this, should work. We have no business logic, so it's just the minimal test. And it failed. Why? Null pointer. Oh, I know why. No, this CS store and this CS equals new chicken service. So, test it. Green bar, and we have the test. Questions? Very good question. Why we don't post the chicken service to the resource? Because this was possible in Java 6, and I wanted to show you something new from Java 7, so I used the JSON object. This was actually the thing. But what we also can do, we can say this is just for. No, we could use the one for, or why not? Try this. No. What you could do, you can say this one accepts consumes media type application XML, for instance, application JSON, sorry. And we could build another method which just uses the chicken, for instance. And just XML. Or even, we could use, you could delete this method and use chicken for both, for XML and JSON. But this could be even more interesting because we could accept different formats for JSON object and chicken. So it will be more flexible. So we could accept, I would say, loose typed objects from JavaScript for HTML5 clients and type safe XML from, for instance, Java clients. Very good. Try annotations. So good feedback. Why I'm using a little bit, why I'm using this, right? And what you can do the following. But I don't do it project, it's too much magic. So what you can do equivalently well is to say run with Mockito JUnit runner, and then I can say inject mocks to this, and my chicken store becomes a mock, and we can skip this entirely and just use this. And this should work also. It works. This would even work if this were private. But there is some limitation with this approach. So we have no time to discuss this. But first, why private here? It is, and if I do this way, I get always questions from developers like they believe that this thing is running on application server or something. So this is like too much magic. This the prior approach was just straight, and this is more elegant, but also more complex. So I try to avoid this. And by the way, if you don't put private, this is still encapsulated because EJBs and CDI they're using proxies. So if the proxies are injected, you cannot just change the state of the chicken store if there's normal scope, CDI manage beans and EJBs. And now the question from the other Adam, why I don't do something like this. And I could skip this. And the answer is, not entirely. It's more code and no added value in my eyes. So in JavaEE, it really doesn't matter. I actually never, it is equivalent code, but I try to avoid in constructor injection because there's way too much code. Very good. So, other questions? So someone asked, what would you use synchronized in JavaEE? I would avoid synchronized altogether, not even in JavaEE. Even in Java SE project, I would rather prefer locks than synchronize. So I didn't use synchronize for several years already. So try to avoid synchronize whenever possible. In JavaEE, synchronize, regardless where you put synchronize, you put it on servlet into get, then you will block probably the whole web application. And you put it on stateless EGB or request scoped EGB, there will be no effect because you get multiple instances of them. And if you put synchronize on singleton, you will create a bottleneck. So, other questions? Pavel, what the state of the union? Do you have questions? Do they have questions? Font is large. We have 3 minutes to go, so please ask questions. And otherwise, see you one day in person or at the AirHacks in Munich in July or December or next year or whenever you like, or Java 1 or whatever conference you like. So, questions? No questions, then thank you very much for watching, and I hope now the whole architecture is a little bit clearer. Really my hope, and sorry for the slides, but it's really hard to explain, the concepts just with code. So you have now both slides and a simplistic code, and I will check in the code in a minute somewhere and send you a link via Twitter so you can download the code and try at home with, it should run with Glassfish or Whitefly equally well, so the code is portable. So thank you very much for attending the DevCrowd conference. And yeah, see you in one of upcoming conferences, workshops, or even AirHacks on projects. Don't forget the projects. So thank you very much. Bye.